There was a story yesterday that some people were talking about that in the locker room after the Miami loss, there was some laughing and clowning around from the offensive side of the ball. What was your experience with that?
So I walked into the locker room almost immediately after it opens, and the locker room opens to the media about like 10, 15 minutes once the game is over. And pretty standard locker room. Quiet, not a lot of guys in there, in and out of the shower, packing up, getting ready to go. And then you look over to the offensive side, as Mark Daniels from Mass Live wrote. Greg Bedard talked about this in the post-game show here in the Hub. And the word I used was lighter, and then the word I used after that was accepting in my tweet, being like, guys aren't as bothered after bad losses as I've seen before. And there's an important detail that I think people are overlooking, because I did see, some guys joking around, smiling, laughing. It's not a crime. But I think the detail that is missing is they were down 24-0 at half. They were down 31-0 in the early fourth quarter, start of the fourth. I think they had time to process being pissed, angry, upset. They had reached like the end of the grieving process there. Still, it struck me as unusual. So you send the tweet out, this is what I'm seeing. This is different from all the bad losses that I've covered over the last 3, 4, 5 years. And so that's why I tweeted it out and didn't make a story out of it, because it struck me. And that's what we're supposed to do. Take it inside the locker room, places you can't go, and tell you things you can't know.
So was that just the players wouldn't do that in the past, or it was unacceptable behavior?
I think Bill cast such sometimes a pall, right, with his own moods after losing, which we all know how that was. And that permeated in the locker room, right? Like the team responds, and it over time resembles the head coach, like pets do with their owners, right, in a weird way. So it's not that Mayo wasn't pissed about this. I just think there's generally a lighter culture and atmosphere, and you see that in the good times, but you also see it in the bad. And so I get why people on the outside are like, how am I more mad at home on the couch than these guys are in the locker room? To that, I would say it's a case-by-case basis, but you saw it, some of the offensive guys, some of the defensive guys. I think on the sideline sitting there in Miami is probably when they were most pissed, and it was, I just need to go home.
And you're also not in a profession where you're graded every week and there's a definitive loser and winner. Like, what people have to realize is that unless you're in a job where there is a constant measuring stick that you have to achieve, and you have to process defeat. Like, you don't have to laugh about it, but I mean, the reason that even I, like as a fan, probably take some losses harder is because ultimately, if I'm the athlete and I can't adjust my mindset to at least accept a loss, I'm going to go crazy. It's going to affect my performance negatively.
Well, think about guys like even Kyle Duggar, who is in his 5th year now, drafted in 2020. These are the Patriots records in his season: 7-9, 10-8 with the playoff loss. 8-9, 4-13, now 3-9. All he's known is losing. He's never won in Miami. So whether it's an acceptance of just this team stinks, we know what we are, or this is all I've known since I got to the NFL. And I'm not saying he wasn't upset, but even guys that you think of as being veterans, captains, like Kyle is, that's just the deal when they go down there and when they've been playing, even under Bill Belichick.
Do you believe that builds a culture? Like, do you really believe like an organization like the Jets or Cleveland are that there's just outside of the owner's behavior that there is just like a culture that can be developed and that is very hard to clean up even if you change personnel?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you see it, like look at the Chargers last night, right? They play the Ravens, who certainly have the best offense in the AFC, might be the best team in the AFC, down to the wire. Jim Harbaugh came in. That roster's largely the same. Everyone's going, I don't think it's much better team.
It's
might
worse.
be worse.
No, they had a bunch of salary cap casualties, yeah.
But he raises the floor in a way that you saw not only there, but at Michigan and Stanford and with the 49ers, with culture, which if you really want to talk about what that is, it's just habits and attitudes. What are you doing over and over and over again in a building, and how many people kind of come with you? Clearly, they weren't doing the things in L.A. under Brandon Staley. They're doing now under Jim Harbaugh. Again, it's the same roster. Okay, but their habits are different. Their attitudes are different. And the Patriots are still trying to figure out what habits and attitudes kind of drive winning, because obviously they're not winning.
Okay, so we were having this debate as we do every Monday. If you're grading the coaching staff, which we won't do, but if you're thinking about what would happen in the offseason and how to improve things, you agree Drake May's development is going well, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so what's more important? I do find this interesting because if I'm a Patriots fan, this year is very exciting to me. I really, really, truly believe that. because you've won the lottery. I mean, you've got yourself a quarterback. He can do everything. What's more important? Bringing in a new offensive coordinator who's innovative and maybe helps you score more points by scheme, or the consistency of Alex Van Pelt, who's successfully developed Drake May up to this point?
So what I would say is Drake May's development is maximum important here, because you saw what happened to a rookie quarterback, plays well his rookie year, and then has an offensive coordinator change, and that guy can't develop him. His name was Mac Jones, and his coordinator was Matt Patricia, and his quarterback's coach was Joe Judge. Bombed, gone, out of New England. What I would say, though, is you might be able to thread the needle, depending on whatever the market is, with a guy who has developed quarterbacks and is a little bit more innovative. So what's the old Chris Rock line? Like, you're only as faithful as your options. Mm-hmm. The Patriots might be no, we're bringing Alex Van Pelt back. The development's there. We hired him to be a culture guy. We hired him to develop the quarterback. He's done both those things. But Brian Daboll gets fired in New York. That's a guy who developed. He made Josh Allen over time. And the offense can kind of come and go. We've seen what it's been with the Giants. But that's a guy who they know, who they trust, and his resume is certainly better than Alex Van Pelt's. What do you do then? I personally would probably hire Brian Daboll, but I also don't know if he'll be available or want to come to New England and work for this coaching staff, knowing how things have gone so far this year.
Isn't it because Daboll, with the head coaching experience and that he was the biggest, like one of the biggest names when he was hired, do you think it would be? Do you think that's the best hire? Because if I'm Gerard Mayo now, I got a real guy in the building that could take my job.
The other
might
part
be
of the
more
problem,
qualified than I am.
Well, the other part of the problem is Daboll would see this as a stopover for his next head coaching job. Who's to say, you know what? He comes here, he's the associate head coach under Gerard Mayo, and then after going through the car wash, he's gone next year, and you're on your third offensive coordinator.
That's guaranteed. If you hire Daboll, right?
He's gone in 1 year.
If you hire Daboll, he's not going to be here for multiple years.
I would think at least two, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
two.
If you watch the Giants, and we can talk about, they re-signed Daniel Jones, that was a big mistake, and let Barkley go, and you can have debates about that. But the point is the roster's not been good.
Yeah.
And so Daboll could make a case. I just don't think, short of the Matt Castle 2008 experience, which launched Josh McDaniels to Denver, that Brian Daboll gets to have the seasons he's had in New York, go somewhere else for 1 year, wash himself clean, even unless Drake May wins MVP, and then go to be a head coach. Okay, those 2 years would be important to me.
But is there a factor of Daboll? Daboll is there, and he is like kind of like even a coach in waiting. Like if you have someone in house, like for instance, if they were to fire Mayo mid-year, he'd be the interim coach, and there'd be a 50-50 shot that he keeps the job.
Right.
That is a very interesting point. I think that gets lost a lot when we talk about these things, because you think about, okay, how do the pieces fit? It's not like hiring a guy in free agency. Does he fit the system? Like Gerard is going to consider that. I think that was a dynamic he probably considered when there were discussions. Do we want Bill O'Brien coming back? A guy who's got a good relationship with the Crafts. I don't know if Bill O'Brien wanted to come back under Gerard Mayo, but either way, like, not only do you need the experience and the personal relationship with some of these guys, you need to think he's not a threat to me. So I don't know if Brian Daboll would be seen as that. I don't know, again, if Brian Daboll would even take the job to be offensive coordinator for the Patriots. He might have other offers.
Would you hire him as a head coach coming up if the Giants fire him?
No.
You wouldn't?
No. I mean, did you see the comments coming out this weekend?
I mean, yeah, it's crazy. I mean, he's not taking responsibility for anything. He's got his players like running all over the place.
This wasn't the coach calling his team soft. This was the rookie receiver calling them soft. And I think Brian Burns or someone on defense did the same thing.
Yeah, and they're both like, and they're contradicting, according to Breer, because he's talking to those guys, like they're contradicting themselves. There's like half the guys that are like Daniel Jones, they screwed him over, and then half are like, he sucked, which to me is worse than everyone just being unified.
Yeah,
like you have, like everyone's, that means that like 50 guys are talking, right?
You'd rather have all 50 guys saying they screwed him over, this place sucks, as opposed to 50-50, like
I
having
think
it divided. Yeah,
because at least I can justify the guys saying they screwed him over, he sucks, that maybe he talked to like 3 guys talked. But if it's opinions all over the place, it's like you got 25 guys talking to you.
Yeah, because
not Bert, but like, you know, as a total, as the media.
It's like when we had the Mac and Zappy guys in 2022. It wasn't a huge locker room schism, but you had a few that were like, why are we still rolling out this kid? Like, Bailey played well. We won with him.
Yeah.
Didn't help matters.
And that was the May situation. I mean, that was part of the reason you were saying that May, a factor in May starting earlier is because...
I never said that, but I do think there was something to it, and I heard this from people. There was just, give us a spark. You know?
Right.
It wasn't like...
But you would agree...
schism.
You would agree, though, as someone who covers the team, if the team, there is a team factor in it, that like if you have a guy that the team believes is the best option and don't play him for like a length of time, that could negatively affect culture, correct?
Yeah, we talked habits and attitudes.
Yeah.
If your attitude is, I go into work and I don't have as much of a shot because my boss is making a bad decision. I don't care if you're in football or finance. Your attitude's not going to be that great. You're probably not going to work as hard.
Yeah.
All right, we have two stats on the line coming up, so I wanted to make sure I asked him about Jabril Peppers.
Yeah, good job.
Who's just removed from the commissioner's exempt list, and I know Doug Kyde had done a lot of reporting on this as to why he was why the NFL did that. I don't know why words are hard this morning, but what is the protocol for the Patriots? I mean, he is accused of some serious things. The trial isn't until late January, so the Patriots are kind of like in a weird spot here. He's eligible to practice tomorrow. He's eligible to play on Sunday. What's the team going to do with him?
We are going to find out when Gerard Mayo talks to us, I think, in 2.5 hours here, maybe even a little bit less. They're actually going to practice today. He might see the field in a few hours, depending on whatever their decision is. And this is not only a Gerard Mayo decision, it's an Elliott Wolf decision. It's really an ownership decision because we know the Crafts don't really play in domestic violence. The deal with this is, and I would say this categorically for any NFL-related punishments, is when you try to make it make sense, it's not always going to make sense. This is an arbitrary process on their part, whether it's a commissioner's exempt list or suspensions. Just ask Tom Brady, the whole Ray Rice situation. We're going back there, but the point stands. The difference with Peppers is the league looked at this according to the reporting from Doug Kyde, and I'll just read it here. This is my new bit. I read my colleagues' work on there. The reason Jabril Peppers was removed from the commissioner's exempt list is because of the baseline suspension for a violation of the personal conduct policy involving the actions for which he was accused is 6 games. He's already missed 7. His court date is after the season. So if he's kept on this list, he would miss a total of 12 games. And they say, hey, we can still impose more discipline pending the deposition and this court date. So I think what they said is like, this is your what's the period if you get like arrested and you can't post bail and you're just in jail, right? Like
right.
this you're in holding.
Awaiting trial.
Okay,
Yeah.
So this is him awaiting trial. He posted bail by virtue of sitting out 7 games and 7 game checks, and they need new information or more information, or the information they have is not enough to say, we'll sit him. I don't know which it is, but I'll go back to what I started with. It doesn't always make sense because they're not good at this. They're not good at playing cops.
Is cutting him on the table?
I would assume so, but I also would think if they had the information and the evidence to cut him, they would have done it already.
They would have cut him the first week.
Right, but sometimes this takes a little bit longer to come out. And if the attorneys involved or the private investigators the NFL has, the Patriots do, aren't able to come together and make things work or share information, you just have to wait.
Something interesting out of that should be said is that Peppers is claiming that the alleged victim asked for a $10 million settlement, and the alleged victim is denying that, which is very strange.
Well, their attorneys are, and they're saying this was the breakdown. It was never this total sum of money, and it was a certain amount of community service, and it was a certain amount of money donated to domestic violence causes. Like that number felt arbitrary and pulled out, not in a way of like pay me to go away. That's not what happened according to the defense attorneys.
According to defense attorneys, but
Right.
that's the way Peppers' attorneys are making it sound. Is
Yeah.
that there was like a payment to make this go away.
They also claim to have video where all of this goes away, saying there's video that contradicts all these things.
And that's the danger of cutting him, because the NFL, I'm sure, does want to set a precedent of like you're just getting rid of players when there's an alleged crime, and then it turns out that they didn't do it, and you've now negatively affected someone's life because of a false accusation. Like that's a very slippery thing, and I'm sure something that the Players Association wouldn't be wild about, because if I was a player, I wouldn't want someone to have the power to just allege a crime and then me lose my job while the whole thing got taken care of, because anyone can allege anything. You know, I'm not saying this isn't true, obviously. I'm, of course, not saying that. And I'm not saying that most of these things, of super high percentage, aren't true. But just in the case of some that aren't, there has to be some period of, finding out what actually happened and justice being served. All right.
If you like that clip, and how could you not? Check out more videos from Toucher and Hardy here. Point slightly up and to the left. For more Patriots analysis and opinion, hit this playlist. Point slightly down and to the left. And for the latest from the Sports Hub, download at 985thesportshub.com.